Welcome to You, Me, Empathy, a safe place for leading with your heart. Hey, thanks for being here. You, Me, Empathy is the official podcast of the Feely Human Collective, a collaborative mental health community designed to empower each of us to grow our capacity for empathy, vulnerability, and emotional wayfinding. Just a friendly reminder that this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. No one is just a silly boy with a feely heart. You can support the show by leaving a review in Apple Podcasts, following us on social media at Yumi Empathy and Feely Human, and joining the Feely Human Collective community at feelyhuman.co. And now your host, Known Wells.
Hello, Feely Humans. Welcome to another episode of You, Me, Empathy. My name is Known Wells. This is episode 172 on empathy in representation with trans artist and activist Rae Senarighi. Rae is a beautiful Feely human. I was so grateful to sit down with Rae to talk about gratitude as an opportunity to be present, experiencing love and joy in small moments, dismantling separateness, and why there's deep empathy in representation. Rae is doing tremendous work, stunning work in the area of representation, trans and non-binary representation specifically, and it's beautiful. Go to transpainter.com or give Rae a follow on Instagram or Facebook at transpainter. Before we get to the episode, though, I wanted to remind you that in just over a week, I am hosting the very first paid workshop for Feely Human. It's $5. It's called Illustrating Empathy. If you go to illustratingempathy.com, you can learn more about it. And it's an empathy and art workshop. It'll be fun. I've done it before. It's really profound. I really enjoy doing it. Again, it's only $5, and there are about 5 or 6 spots left. So if you'd like to get in on that, it's April 14th at 2 p.m. Pacific time. You can learn more about that and sign up at illustratingempathy.com. And if you want to support me and the work I do on an ongoing basis, you can do that at Patreon, patreon.com/feelyhuman. I just released April's bonus episode of this podcast with It's Kinda Okay creator Sarah Crossley. Sarah and I are doing a very special project that haven't really said anything about it, but we get into it deep in this month's Patreon bonus episode. So if you want to hear about that, check us out. It's $5 a month at patreon.com/feelyhuman. And if you want to support me for free, you can do so by leaving a rating and review of this podcast in Apple Podcasts. It's easy to do. I love when I get new reviews. Fills my heart, reminds me of why I'm doing this work. And if you want to be part of the Feely Human Collective, I'd love for you to be. I think you are already, but if you want to contribute in some way, or lead a workshop, or write for the journal, I'm especially looking for new writers. Check it out at feelyhuman.co. And I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of this empathetic, feely, sensitive, wonderful, heart-leading community. Actually, just one note before we get into the conversation with Rae. I have been feeling a lot of emotions lately, especially centered around my old dog, Scooby. Scooby is 14 and a half years old. He is the love of my life. Sorry, Jessica. He is the love of my life and such a sweet boy. And he's this past couple of weeks, he's taken a dramatic shift. He's slowing down, and it's hard to say, and it's hard to see. And I don't know what I'd do without Scooby in my life, and I'm emotionally and mentally preparing for his absence this year, and I am reminding myself to stay present. I'm reminding myself to be here now, be in the moment, to be with him, to help him out of the bed in the morning, because he can't really feel his back legs much anymore. He's not in pain, but he's starting to kind of lose it. And I don't even want to say that out loud, but I am. It feels like a admission or something, and it's hard. It's hard, and I guess I bring that up just to say, not for sympathy, but just to say, the moment is what we have. There's so much pre-mourning we do, or anticipatory anxiety we do. We hold on to like what's in the past or what's in the future. None of that is something we have any control over. All we have is now. All we have is, I'm hearing the birds outside this morning chirping. I have that, and I have you, and I have this microphone that I'm speaking into, and that's what we have. We have each other in the moment, right? We have our hearts. We have this beautiful means of connection and empathy that is this podcast, and that is this community together, us together. We have this now, and that's what we have. We can't predict tomorrow. We can't change the past. We have now. And so, maybe that helps you this week. Maybe it doesn't, but I hope it does. And I wish you well. And I thank you so much for being a part of this Feely community. You're a Feely human. And I'm grateful for you. Okay, let's get to the episode. Episode 172 on empathy in representation with trans artist and activist and beautiful Feely human, Rae Senarighi.
La la la, you, me, empathy, yeah, la la la.
Welcome to You, Me, Empathy, the official podcast of the Feely Human Collective. On this show, we explore the struggles, the triumphs, the brights and the darks we face as humans trying to get by on this wondrous and overwhelming pale blue dot. The intent of You, Me, Empathy is to talk openly, without judgment, about our mental health, our neuroses, our shared anxieties and worries, to create a dialogue that is vulnerable and deeply human and empathetic, and to share that dialogue with others to inspire emotional and cognitive collaboration and insight, so we can, hand in hand, break down the stigma that make us feel shame and guilt for struggling, for feeling our feelings, for being feely humans. You, Me, Empathy is a safe, friendly space designed to inspire the beauty in each of us. Today, I am so honored to be here with non-binary, cancer-surviving, astoundingly beautiful artist exploring gender resilience and representation of transgender and non-binary power and joy. It's Rae Senarighi. Hello, Rae.
Hey, I'm so excited to be here.
So happy to have you here.
Talk about empathy and all the feelings. Yeah.
Yes, all the feelings. That's what this show is all about. Let's get right into it. We always kick off the show with an emotional check-in. How are you feeling?
Honestly, the last couple of days, I've just been coming back to gratitude. Like I've had a couple of moments of being like frustrated or tired or cranky about like really dumb things, honestly. And then, just also in those moments, turning and being like, oh my gosh, actually, I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful right now. And a lot of times, frustration comes. I have 2 little kids, and there's all kinds of ways that like it's hard. And so like being in these moments where I'm like, brought into my like that old brain that's like reactionary,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
then experiencing this like, oh my gosh, actually, like I am super grateful. I'm grateful to be here in this moment, and I'm grateful to um, be holding this child that might be having a hard time, or we're giving each other a hard time, whatever. But like
Yeah.
just like that, I have been, yeah, like not trying to, but being in gratitude the last couple of days, and that's been really good for my heart and for my soul.
Mm.
I'm not always in that space,
Yeah.
but I've been working on doing some writing and preparing, some talks and things like that. And a lot of the stuff that I talk about is about gratitude. And so maybe that's just been percolating in there, but
Yeah.
that's where I've just been in touch with some
Mm.
gratitude.
I
And
love that.
yeah, it feels
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
So yeah. How about you?
I mean, gratitude definitely feels good. I'm trying, like, when I feel gratitude, the thing that was coming to mind was like, okay, what does that feel like in my body? What does it feel like in your body?
That is exactly the thing that I kind of like to explore with people, honestly, is like,
Mm.
um, when I find myself in a place where I recognize that I'm in a hard spot and I turn it around and I think about gratitude, it for me brings me into a state of being able to experience love and joy in this moment. And usually the moment is small and ordinary, and we're not on a nobody's on a amazing vacation right now. It's not big exciting happiness. It's that like in the moment small. um there's like, yeah, I feel like it's a connection to joy and to love.
Mm. Mm. I love that. I had a conversation recently with Mark Pagan. He created Other Men Need Help. It's a podcast about
Mm,
masculinity and gender identity, and it's wonderful. And
awesome.
he was talking about the importance of celebrating like the small graces, right?
Absolutely.
We as humans tend to want these big things. We tend to want these like big sort of like, you know, orchestral like moments in our life, but taking the time and taking the pause to find those small graces, they could be just as powerful and transformative.
Absolutely. And honestly, like I would argue that they are more important than those big moments. I think that they're, you think about like, oh, I'm going to go on a vacation to this gorgeous place, and you think about it beforehand and you think
Mm.
about it afterwards. But it's really like in the moment, in the small day-to-day things. Like if you're able to be present, I feel like I feel like gratitude is an opportunity to be present. Like you
Mm.
just kind of said at the onset of this conversation, is that gratitude is an opportunity to be present in this moment and to experience appreciation and joy in the moment. And
Yeah.
often those are really small things. But I think if you talk about what's important to life to someone who is you know lived a really amazing life and might be in their 90s or something, they're going to tell you about small moments.
Mm.
And the things that were really important to them are time with family or their friends, or like those are the things, like that's
Yeah.
that connection. And I think you have to be present to have connection with other people.
Mm-hmm. Do you find that when you are in that space, you're trying to embody that gratitude, that specificity helps? Like thinking about
Hmm.
like, okay, I am, maybe my little kiddo is bringing me some frustration or whatever, but like,
Yeah.
look at their beautiful little hands, and their like
Yeah.
plump little fingers, like things like that.
Yeah, often it is really specific things.
Mm.
The the turning point for me to actually like start purposefully integrating gratitude in my life was a really dramatically hard moment of my life. But at that moment, I was like, I'm going to name everything I can think of to be grateful for. And so, because that was my teaching moment for myself about gratitude, usually when I'm in a moment where I'm trying to redirect myself and think about gratitude, I'll take 2 minutes and I'll name everything I can think of in 2 minutes. And often it's stuff that, you don't normally think about or normally express, particular gratitude for. But I think being grateful for those things helps you not, there's just so many nuances to our lives that we don't really think about and that we don't really appreciate unless you have this like kind of gratitude practice. I think folks who have a gratitude practice do, kind of get in touch with those little ordinary specific things. At least from what I can tell. Yeah.
I think you're right. I think a gratitude practice is, in another way of saying it is, you said being present, I think, but just being mindful of what's happening here and now. And as you know very well, there's so much, and I've been thinking about this a lot because I'm developing a new workshop about what empathy and advocacy looks like in a world that feels very, very divided, right?
Yeah.
We have this tendency to, I mentioned the big moments, but also we have this tendency to put things in boxes. We have this tendency to be very specific about how we, identify things in our lives. And with that comes a lot of, narrowness maybe, and a lot of forgetting the pause, forgetting the nuance and the rich tapestry of the experience in between. And if this podcast and these talks are about anything, it's about that. It's about finding that beauty and grace and discomfort and healing and connection in all of that gray and mess, right? And the muck.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that what I was thinking about when you were just talking is that we get really easily pulled into separation, right? Into separateness in those boxes, like you were just saying. And particularly now, everybody's kind of talking about how polarized, we are, at least here in the United States. And that is true. And it's really easy to be polarized. The more you're in an echo chamber, whether that's on social media or whatever. And the separateness is exactly the opposite of the connection that we were just talking about too, right? Like that connection is the important stuff in life, human connection, our stories that we tell. I think the work that you're trying to do is connection with people. The work that I try to do is connection and sharing stories. And that's all about really the opposite of this polarization that we find ourselves in. And it really is, it's tempting to be in polarization. It's tempting to separate ourselves. Sometimes it's really hard to see how to connect with people across, some of the chasms that exist right now.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's everything. Connection is how we grow, right? Through connection, we find perspective, and we look at things differently, and we shed what we knew before. But it takes that willingness to get uncomfortable. It takes courage, I believe. And I'm going to reframe what you said a little bit to give a bit more credit to you and to me, which is like, we're trying to do this work, but we're also doing this work, I would argue.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Telling stories, being vulnerable, providing representation where it needs to be, and doing so beautifully. And I think that's we all have that capacity, right? Like we all have that. I believe, like, you mentioned before, like, the old brain, or the lizard brain or whatever. I think we do all have that in that. Like I believe there's this evolutionary or biological drive to connect, right? But so much white noise, so much like noise gets in the way, so many of these boxes, so many of these, this is you, this is me, this is what we are, like, and we tell that, those are the narratives we tell ourselves even.
Absolutely.
So how do we get out of that narrative? How do we keep embracing stories that allow for more of that complexity, nuance, and growth? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that is the heart of it. And I think that your subject of empathy, you, me, and empathy, like empathy has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can be empathetic without being courageous. I think that empathy is a courageous act, right?
Yeah.
You have to be open and willing to see someone else and to like really see them and really listen to them and hear them and provide space for that other person. And you can't be in a defensive space, right? And defensiveness is in those boxes. And so like the conversations around empathy, the striving to have empathy for other people is courageous. And I think that I feel like there's something to be said about, we're talking about a lot about empathy and connection and all of that. And, kind of how do we get past these divides and past the division?
Mm-hmm.
There's also plenty of validity to having boundaries, right?
Oh yeah.
So like being empathetic, wanting to tell stories, wanting to have connection, doesn't mean that you have to not, have boundaries and accept, the hatred or the kind of, there's a lot of people who get feathers ruffled and will throw all kinds of things at you, especially in the social media realm. And part of, I think, anyone who's trying to put themselves out there and make the world a better place is getting that from some direction or another. Mm-hmm. Some of us get it more than others, but I think that's just an important thing to note is that when we're talking about hard things and people being in separateness, yes, we want connection. Yes, we want to tell those stories, and we can't do it. You can't do it at your own expense in a way that's going to take away from your own personal energy. I mean, there's a lot of teachers out there who talk about this kind of stuff. There's a place that I follow on Instagram called the Nap Ministry, and their whole. I don't know if you follow them.
Yeah, they're great.
There's a whole bunch of teachers out there that talk about that, about like protecting yourself as well, and not necessarily protecting yourself in a way that's like separating, but a protection of your own energy and your own. Yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I'm so grateful you brought that point up. It's crucial. I mean, we have to have boundaries. The more I think about the concept of empathy, the more I think about how it is a courageous act. It is a brave act. It's also one of the most challenging things one can do. It's like it's active daily embodiment, right? And that, and thinking about like, people who think very starkly different from me, right? And thinking about that, and understanding that it's not about let's agree to disagree, right? Like that's not the place I want to be. That's the place we've been. And that's, that's why there's still a tremendous amount of hate and violence toward others, right? There's a lot of othering going on still. So that's not the place I want to be. So I bring that up because it's hard work. And with that, it has to start from within, right? Like we can't put our empathy outward until we really truly start within and have empathy for ourselves. Empathy as a concept, we don't tend to think about as toward ourselves, right?
Right.
Generally, I think we struggle with that as humans, is like giving the love and honoring those boundaries and figuring out what those boundaries are and what they mean to me.
Yeah.
That work has to come before the external stuff.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
Are you open to talking a little bit about some of the, maybe boundaries you've had to put up in your own sort of life and career?
Yeah, absolutely. That has shown up in all kinds of ways for me. There are very personal ways that has shown up with my own, family. I grew up in a family and in a community that actually kind of separated itself from the world. The church that I grew up in was recently being researched as a cult, because they really did encourage folks to separate themselves from the outside world, and including other family that didn't ascribe to that particular church, right?
Gotcha.
And so I've had, I'm in my 40s now, and I've had all kinds of journeys and experiences with my own family members around, trying really hard to have connection and find human connection, even though I am different. And I did leave that church and that religion. And, after kind of banging my head against a wall for a long time, I ended up having to separate myself from some of my family because it wasn't healthy for me. Right. And I honestly didn't realize that until it was also about my loved one. Right. It was until that kind of, I'll call it, judgment was leveled at my spouse. I put up with a lot of it when it was leveled at me. When it got leveled at my spouse, and then when my spouse and I began having kids, I just realized, like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to subject my wife or my kids to this.
Right.
But I did put up with it for a long time for myself. And that was a lesson for me, just realizing that, and, having conversations, around my own gender identity, and saying, like, look, we're having a conversation about whether or not we're going to be in each other's lives, and whether or not you can accept me for who I am is a hard conversation to have.
Yeah.
And I feel really proud of the way that I conducted myself in some of those conversations, where I was able to be grounded and just come back to that and say, like, look, this is the conversation that we're having. Do I trust you enough to be in my life anymore? And that's a really hard boundary to have. It's hard to set something like that. But if you're dealing with people in your life who are not able to meet you and to accept, when you tell them something, to not accept that as true, and to reject that, you can try a few times. If someone can't meet you with respect, and often those are people that are close to us, right, that really get to you.
Yeah.
Then, you do get to make decisions around your own, like, what is healthy for you and what is just going to drain your energy and keep kind of cutting at your own self-worth, things like that. I think that it's pretty important to figure out what your boundaries are. And, there were my wife and I, when we did have a wedding, neither one of us had really been very interested in having a wedding until we met each other. And then we were like, oh yeah, let's do this thing. But we were really careful about who we invited to the wedding. We didn't invite anyone that we felt obligated to invite. We only invited people who we knew were going to 100% celebrate with us. And we had a magical wedding. Like it was absolutely amazing. I remember dancing on the dance floor and looking around the room and just seeing like all of these people in our life, beaming love and joy at us. And like, and that was also a boundary, right? Like figuring out, hey, this is a really important day to us. And we had subsequent reception kind of things afterwards where we invited all the family members that maybe couldn't make the giant trek out to where our wedding was. Yeah. Things like that. But I've also had to set boundaries on social media. I think that that's something that people have to deal with a lot is like, I end up getting people on my page who either project their own self-hatred at me. They, or at, the art that I'm creating. And, the stuff that I put out there is, I'm pretty direct with like, this is who I am. This is what I'm doing. And so I don't really allow, trolling on my social media page. Like that's my page. I get to control what's on there. A lot of the people that follow me are trans and non-binary people. And I feel protective of them on my page. When they come to my page, they don't need to deal with that either. And so if you come to my page with self-hatred, some folks, I might have a conversation with them. But it really kind of depends on what it is that they're saying to me. And if they're just there to troll, I'll block and delete them. I mean, that's one of my boundaries. Like I don't have energy. I have very little time in my life as it is. And so, I don't have energy to kind of engage with that. And everybody has different things that work for them online. And I really admire some folks who I follow who do engage with these, really hateful comments that they get. And they do really pretty amazing work with those folks by the conversations that they're having. And I admire that, but that's not the work that I'm interested in doing. Yeah. And so I think it's okay to define like, what is your work? What is it that you want to spend your energy and your time doing? I feel like, my time is precious and I want to spend my time doing work that's good when I'm at work. And I want to spend time being present with my family when I'm with my family. And I want to spend time really being as present with my art when I have time in my studio. And so I think that it's good to explore like what your boundaries are. And sometimes you find that out by realizing how much energy you just, lost having an argument with somebody. And then you figure out, oh, hey, maybe I have a different boundary now or whatever. Yeah. I don't know how you deal with that same thing, but it's a learning process. I feel like for me,
it's every day. It is a learning process for me too. I think it will always be. And I thank you for sharing all that. I like hearing you talk about the boundaries you've set with your family. Like that's something that I've had to do myself personally. And it's so hard and it's so grief stricken and emotional but so self-honoring. And I just wanted to give you that because it's I was getting all these ooey gooey, lovely feelings and goosebumps. And I just want to say thank you for doing that for yourself because it's hard. It's hard when I believe the greatest gift that we can give each other is meeting people where they are. And And when you can't do that, it feels awful. It feels, and especially it's when it's the people that, quote unquote, should be seeing us, right? It's so painful. And I thank you for doing that for yourself. 'Cause like you do that and then you can flourish in the way that is meaningful and right for you. Right. And, without it, like, you may not be creating these beautiful paintings, right? Like it's like these are the building blocks toward self-actualization. And it's so beautiful.
You're absolutely right. I mean, honestly, I could not be doing the work that I do today without that like self-love and gratitude and for me, the self-love had to start everything. I had to start there.
Mm-hmm.
But it also, like, when I realized like how important it was to love my own physical body, I also realized like, oh, I have to love, my time too. I have to love my own energy. And so, and that is what got me to, even prioritizing doing my own art instead of just, making money and being caught up in kind of, the busyness of life.
Yeah.
Self-love is the absolute, and self-empathy is the absolute building blocks for doing any of the work that I do. And also, I create portraiture. That's what I do. And I believe that my daily practice of learning to love my own self is how I'm able to, pour that love into these portraits. And I really, my hope is that love comes through to other people when they look at my portraits. But like, I really am, when I'm painting somebody, I am, expressing love for that human being in the best way that I know how, that isn't a romantic love or, it's like separate from my, my love of my family and my children. It's a different kind of love because a lot of those folks, honestly, I have not met except for over, social media or over Zoom.
Yeah.
But that it had to start with me. It had to start with my own internal work before I could get to this place.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. Talk a little bit about that love of your subjects and, cause I resonate with that. I think about, art is in all of its forms, it's story, right? It's representation. It's how we capture the essence of people and the nuance of humanity. And I consider myself a writer. I've always been a writer. I love movies and I love reading. I'm a huge book nerd. And stories mean so much to me. I mean, as the late Roger Ebert said, movies are empathy machines. And the same is true of story, right? So when you're like, talk to me. I mean, I know a little bit about like your current, series of work and your portraiture. But for the listeners, talk a little bit about like that origin story in regards to like who you're representing now, what that specifically means to you, all that loveliness.
Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about it. It's something obviously that's really close to my heart. And I would spend all of my time doing it if I could. But for me, I have been an artist my whole life. My mom was an artist. She died when I was 11. But, my childhood up until she died, I mean, I got to watch her create art and I got to learn a lot from her, and art was fostered in me at a young age. And it's always been this place where everything else in my life could be hard. And there was quite a lot of trauma that I dealt with as a young person, abuse within my family. My mom, got in a car accident when I was 6 and broke her neck, her arm and her leg and was in the hospital for like 6 months.
Wow.
And then she died when I was 11. So like there was a
Yeah.
lot of trauma that I was dealing with. My parents also got divorced when I was young. My remarriage, there's all kinds of stuff that I was dealing with.
Yeah.
And art was the place that was, if it was hard in a way that was like interesting and soothing to me, right? Even when it's challenging, like it's that place that I can go and be happy and be immersed and be in that state of flow that you hear people talk about often when they're talking about, if they're dancers or they're musicians or they're writers or whatever, it's that state of flow.
Yeah.
And so I've always known that I'm an artist, and I've always been seen by others, as an artist. And so that's always been a place of comfort for me. But I did spend, most of my adult life kind of wondering what I was supposed to do with it, right? And getting, trying to find my way, essentially. And art got put on the shelf for a really long time. And I found it again when I survived cancer. And like I said it just a few minutes ago, I realized, when I was just realizing that I don't have all the time in the world, right? What am I going to do with the time that I have?
Yeah.
Realizing, I've got to make art that I really care about, right? That's not just art to make money or just going to work, I need to prioritize that and treat that with respect, right? And once I made that decision, I honestly didn't know what to make art about, but I made a commitment to myself to make art every day. Even if it was for like 10 minutes, I would be like, okay, I'm going to go into my studio and I'm going to make art, and I don't care what it is. I don't have to show it to anybody, just have to go in and do it.
Yeah.
And the first about year or so in my studio, after surviving cancer, I was really, kind of focused on what love means to me, right? And realizing if I've got time and energy to create something, it's going to be based in love. And so my first series was an abstract series, all basically with just me going into the studio and meditating on love and creating abstract paintings. And it was wonderful. And it was so healing for me. And through kind of a series of just following opportunities that got put in front of me, I ended up kind of doing some portraiture work for a commission, and I really enjoyed it, and just had this realization that I've always been appreciative of art. I've always loved going to art museums when I travel or something, go to a new city, go see the art. And realizing that I've never gone into the portrait gallery and seen a, trans or non-binary person represented. I don't know that I've ever seen that. Maybe in a special exhibition, there's some really cool photography projects that I've seen, but I haven't gone into a painting portraiture wing and seen representation of my community. And I thought, there is this basically gaping hole of representation for people. And I kind of jumped into that because I had gotten interested in portraiture very recently to that, and was like, okay, this is something I want to try. And I reached out to friends to start. And then I kind of timidly went online and I was creating something that was very specific. The show that I was creating was I'm going to put this up. I'm going to find some place to put this up, and it's going to be very specific. It is going to be trans and non-binary people. So I reached out to people to ask their permission before painting them. I wasn't just going to paint fan art and not talk to people about it. It had to be people who, consented to be a part of this. And, some people never got back to me. Some people said no, but a lot of people said yes. And And at first, I basically just relied on people who had lots of photos of themselves and were kind of already putting themselves out there in a pretty big way. And now that I've got a little bit more experience and a little bit more confidence, in myself
Sure.
and in the work that I'm doing, I now have deeper conversations with people when I start this process. And often my process of painting portraiture is a long one. I often will spend a couple of months painting the physical portrait, but also sometimes it takes me a while to even get that painting started. But I start with having a conversation with that person and trying to figure out, like, hey, I want to represent you well. Like, how do I do that? Like, and often I'll send them photos of themselves from their social media that I'm attracted to, and say, like, this is what I'm looking for. What is your feedback? And often what I've found is my own kind of process now is that I will take 4 or 5 photos that we both agree on and conglomerate them all into one photo. That's what I use as the basis for my portrait painting. Because I can't travel right now and take photos of people, and I am painting people in all kinds of geographic regions, and so this kind of frees us up to create a portrait of them that feels like they feel well represented. And that's really important to me. And it has been a learning process in doing this work, is that, like, not only do I want to see representations of trans and non-binary people in those painted portrait galleries, so that trans and non-binary people going to those spaces can see themselves, right? I want that. But I also care deeply about the people that I'm painting, and I want them to feel just as proud of that. If they were to go in and see that on the wall, like, I want them to feel like I have seen them. And the other thing that I do, is I feel rather protective of my community, right? And I don't want to make it necessarily easy for people to project whatever. People have all kinds of feelings about trans and non-binary people that often are based in misinformation, disinformation, or a lack of information, right?
Or fear,
and so I don't
insecurity.
provide, and fear, all kinds of stuff. So I don't provide like a neat little bio for each person. But what I do provide is, hey, if you're interested in knowing who this person is, and I definitely hope you are, because I spent months painting them, right? I care about them. They're amazing. But I want you to go find out, go do the work, go find out their story from them, because they're all telling their own stories, but they're doing it in their own ways. Like a modern dancer is going to tell you a very different story in a very different way than a musician or a poet or a community organizer, right? So all of the portraits that I do, I include their name as they'd like it listed, where they're from. Some people list where they were born. Some people list where they live now, and then their Instagram handle. And it's like, I want people to do that, and to give those people the respect that I feel like they deserve, which is to be able to tell their own stories.
Yeah.
Right? My storytelling is through my art, but they're all telling their stories in their own unique ways. So,
there's so much there, and I think your work is remarkable. I want to, first of all, I think the representation piece I want to unpack a little bit, because there's a lot of empathy in that, right? Like, for example, like this show, for instance, a crucial piece of empathy is hearing the stories of others, is reflecting, right? Is seeing your stories, saying like, oh, no one had an experience with anorexia. I did too. Like, maybe some of his story, the complexity of and the nuance of his recovery and humanity, I can reflect upon that, and maybe that can provide a little bit of perspective or healing for me. Like that's the beauty of vulnerability. And there's a lot of vulnerability in, I think, your work. I want you to talk a little bit about like your feelings going into, this project specifically, and like not seeing that representation, like how that felt, and how it has since been met, by people in the trans and non-binary communities, like how your work has been met. And then, just your initial feelings of like, hey, I'm not represented here, because that it has to feel so isolating. Like it's got to be an isolating experience. And like, we are also, we do so much isolating ourselves. And when we're in spaces that art spaces, right? Art should be this beautiful, like humanistic connecting force, right? And when you don't see your community represented, not into it. How did you feel?
Unfair. It felt unfair when I realized this. Like, it felt unfair. I felt indignant, and I think that is based in like sadness, right? If I look underneath being angry about it, or being like feeling worked up about it, right? That is underneath all of that is sadness,
Sure.
And I see in my community a group of people who have something really important to teach the world. And that is about self-love and about, I truly believe like my community's very existence is a radical act of love, right? We are people who say like, hey, this is who I am. And no matter what anyone says or accepts or anything, like I'm going to live in my truth.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do that right now. And this is who I am. And I feel like that is so important. And it makes me emotional just talking about it. Like I feel really proud of my community, and I feel really protective of my community, and I want to celebrate my community. And I have a lot of emotion that's wrapped up in this work.
Yeah.
And I also, I have a lot of reverence for the work that I'm doing, because I know that, my own experience is just that. Like, people want me to talk about my artwork. I can tell you about my experience. I can tell you about my own life. But these people all have to tell you about their own stories. Like I can't tell their stories for them. The thing that I can do is, paint their portrait with as much love as I possibly can, and hope that you, as the viewer, if you are outside of my community, if you are cisgender, that you see our humanity and that you see our beauty and our strength. Like that is my hope. And, one of the most, I don't know if I thought about it or had a concept of it before it happened, but one of the most powerful and amazing things that has happened through my work is, I have kind of dedicated myself to taking this work around the country and hopefully outside of the country when we can all travel again, myself, because I want people to see this work. I'm not making this to sell it and have somebody put it in their house. Like, I am making this work so that it can be out in public, so it can be seen. And I have therefore been able to bring it to all kinds of spaces and witness people experiencing the art, and seeing my own community react to this work has been one of the most emotional and one of the most amazing experiences of my life. Like getting to see people see themselves. And I've seen people, tear up. I've seen people beam with pride and take a selfie, and, all kinds of things. And it's just been one of the most rewarding aspects of doing this and being able to travel and connect with people. Is I love the conversations that I have with all kinds of people who come to my shows. But that connection with my own community, with getting to see them, and hear some of the things that they've been willing to share with me has truly just, I guess confirmed, like, yeah, you're doing this, and it's impacting people, because even if it's just one person, then it made feel um, feel seen and feel celebrated and
Yeah.
feel honored in that way, then all of my effort is worth it.
Yeah.
I would love to tell you the story of
Please.
one of my favorite people that I've ever met. And like I never know who's at my shows. I never know who I'm talking to at a show. If it's an art reception, I talk to all kinds of people. I never know why they're there, if they're trans or if they're non-binary, or if they're queer, or if they're cisgender, or if they're just a lover of art. Like, I don't know, and I don't
Yeah.
make any assumptions. Sometimes, we can kind of know each other in this community, but also, yeah, like I really don't know who's at my shows or why. But I got to meet. I was in a pretty small town in a red, maybe purple state. I don't know. I was in a smaller town at a university, and I have two little kids now. I had one little kid at that point, and this family walked in, and so I walked right up to the kids and I introduced myself and asked them their names. And there was two young boys, and their parent took some photos of us, and then we had some pleasantries, and it went on with our day. And then she actually reached out to me. The mom reached out to me about a week later via email, and she sent me some pictures and told me the story behind them being there at that show. And her 4-year-old had just come out as trans, and his older brother was like 7 or something like that, and he had been coaching the rest of the family around correct pronouns and was like very proud. And it was just this sweet story. And then she sent me these photos of the 4-year-old who there was a few pictures that they took, but one in particular where he was standing in front of his favorite portrait, and he has this little Superman shirt on, and his face is just beaming with the smile that is like so big. And I just cried, like I got
Sure.
that message, and I just cried, because I was like, this is what it's all about. This 4-year-old kid got to come to the big university and see portraits and see someone who he could aspire to be. And that just makes every effort that I ever put into doing this totally worth it. So I just had to share that, because it makes me like cry every time.
Oh, it's so beautiful. And I have so much hope for, hearing stories like that, so much hope for the future. I just want to say, like, I'm proud of the work you're doing. I'm proud of your community. I think about me as a white, cisgendered, middle class guy, and even me, right, felt like I couldn't be myself growing up. Even me, like, and I almost died through that process, through self-harm and suicidal stuff, and the aforementioned anorexia. There is so much power in coming into and expressing who we are, right?
Yeah.
And I just want to share, like, the perspective of, like, again, here's me, white, middle class, cisgendered person. That is hard for me. And this is not a comparing game, this is not a competition game, but for the listeners, put that into perspective, right? Like, that is important to think about when we think about our communities and the vast beauty and the myriad beauty that exists in the world, including the beautiful community that you are fostering and honoring in your art. And so I just want to say thank you, and I'm so proud of you for doing that. It's amazing. It just fills my heart so much.
Thank you. It fills my heart to do this work. It really does. In my studio, because I don't really my goal isn't to sell this work and get it out of my studio. I have a lot of it in my studio. And if people out there haven't seen my work, almost all of my portraits are not smiling. They're just people looking straight at you. And so I feel like I'm surrounded by these like superheroes when I'm in my studio, because there's all these people who I've painted who are just, kind of looking out in this grounded, present way. And they encourage me, to keep going and to keep doing this work, honestly.
I love that.
Yeah.
So what are you working on now? Like, what's exciting for 2021? I mean, in a world where we're not flying anywhere.
Yeah. Well, I am actually bringing physical works to Missouri State University next week. So
Nice.
That's going to be a marathon trip for me. Normally I would fly with these works, but I'm going to drive. It's going to be a long drive, but I'm going to do that. And I've honestly been really encouraged by, the learning process that I have been through in this last year with the pandemic. A lot of my work before that was travel related, right? And connecting with people and doing speaking engagements and workshops in person. And so translating that into a Zoom call has been a challenge, but it's turned out to be one that has been a learning experience and turned into something that I really appreciate and really enjoy. And so I've got a lot of workshops and, kind of connection with people that I'm looking forward to, even with, us still being in the middle of a pandemic. I feel like I am proud of myself, and I am proud of everyone who has been through what we've been through in this last year. And I feel like all of us have grown in, all of these unique ways about like how we go about doing what we're doing and how we continue to connect with each other. And so I'm excited about that. And I am still doing the work that I'm doing, but I have a couple of, branch offs of this work that I'm interested in exploring, and trying to figure out how to do that is hard when I do have a full-time job, and I have a wife and 2 little kids, and I'm also trying to do this work. And so, finding the time and the energy and the wherewithal to start new projects is hard, but there's something to the experience of an embodiment of joy, particularly with trans and non-binary people. Like, that is a special thing that we work, and we have to be brave and overcome quite a lot of challenge to do, is to be in and experience joy. And so there's a show there that I want to explore. And there's also another tangent that has to do with family and our community. And so I don't know how quickly either of these will come together or exactly how they will happen. But those are ways that I want to expand the work that I'm doing. But I also am determined to just keep making portraits. I have a list of people about a mile long that I want to paint. And I'm also, my work is kind of slow going. So there is always more to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm giving myself a break as far as I don't have any hard deadlines that I'm trying to meet with these things, but they're interesting to me. They go along with, just kind of expressing who we are and celebrating that.
Yeah. That's exciting. There's a lot of exciting stuff in your future, Rae. I love that. So we always wrap up the show, Rae, talking about our empathy heroes. So people we know personally, could be characters from stories we even like, authors we love, etc. I will go first to give you a moment to think about your empathy hero or two. My empathy hero this week is the author Bell Hooks, who wrote this quote I love. Bell says, quote, "Knowing how to be solitary is central to the art of loving. When we can be alone, we can be with others without using them as a means of escape." that's something that I've been thinking about a lot. It goes back to maybe some of the stuff we were talking about where we have to kind of start inward before we go outward, right? There is a lot of just being with ourselves, sitting with ourselves, accepting ourselves. That is hard work. That is difficult work, especially if we're in systems that feel oppressive and difficult and painful, and we don't feel supported and seen. But as Rae listeners, as Rae proves to us, there are communities, there are pockets of these accepting, seen, feeling, loving, supporting places that help us feel a little bit safe to explore these things in ourselves. So I love Bell Hooks, a great thinker and writer, and she's my empathy hero this week.
Mm.
Yeah.
So good. Yeah. There are, I think, many teachers and books and podcasts that talk about this subject. But I honestly, the person who has taught me the most about empathy, and this might sound cheesy, but it is my wife. I have always thought of myself as an empathetic person, and I do care deeply about people, right? And I also like want to try and help people, like especially if they open up and tell me something. And my wife, we've been together now 11 and a half years or so. And she has taught me so much about how to express empathy better. I am not perfect at it still, even though I have like a great big heart and I really care about people. And I also have this tendency to want to try and fix things. So she's taught me a lot about like the way that I express empathy needs to be about that person and not about me. So not trying to fix something for them, not trying to, tell my own story that relates to what you just said, right? There's all kinds of ways that I feel like I have mistakenly thought was empathy when it wasn't experienced that way necessarily by, right now I'm talking about my wife, but I'm sure I've done this with other people. And I feel like there's a lot about empathy that is, kind of getting out of your own headspace and really basically, saying back to that person what they have said can be a really powerful, really simple way of expressing empathy, and realizing, or even asking them a question and saying, do you want to just feel heard? Do you want, solutions? So like giving people the power to tell you how they would like to receive empathy, and realizing like that there's a lot of difficult and uncomfortable emotions that you might experience when someone opens up to you and is telling you something that might be difficult to hear, whether they're telling you a difficult story about their own life or they're telling you about something that they want differently from you. Like there's all kinds of like uncomfortable feelings that can come up in your own self. And so like learning about empathy, has been I feel like a lifelong process for me, but it's been one that, I've been more focused in the years after meeting my wife, who's been kind enough to teach me and repeatedly teach me like how to provide empathy. So I'm gonna say my wife, her name is Rae Senarighi, and she also happens to be a relationship coach. So she teaches a lot of people how to be empathetic with each other.
I love this. I love that Gina
I just get to benefit from that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing. And such good lessons in empathy. It's hard. It's hard to do. And it takes a lot of, we go into conversations and, even if we're like telling ourselves outwardly, like, allow them to speak, set the preconceptions at the door, like we still like it's still there. It takes practice. I struggle at it too sometimes. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I love what you're doing and the conversations that you're having, and I appreciate you having me on today.
Oh, yeah. I love the work that you're doing, Rae. Please tell the listeners where they can connect with you.
Oh, yeah. So my name is Rae Senarighi, but that is a little bit hard to memorize how to spell over the airwaves. So you can find me at Trans Painter. And I'm on Instagram and Facebook at Trans Painter, or you can go to my website, transpainter.com.
Amazing. Well, Rae, thank you so much for being a part of this. Really appreciate you and the work that you're doing.
Thanks, Nan. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And to you listeners, as I always say, I'm here, you're here, we're here together on this wayward, overwhelming, awe-inspiring, pale blue dot. We have each other. It's you, me, empathy.
La, la, la.